Thanks very much. Maybe I'm not as confident a speaker as some of those who went before me, but what I lack in confidence, I hope I'll make up in enthusiasm. And that reminds me, passing a restaurant recently, there's the sign, enthusiastic stew. I asked the person, what's in the stew? And he says, everything the chef's got. So you're about to get everything I've got about education, learning, or as much as I can do in 15 minutes. The other side of it is, and you can see I've got a real theme in food. I went into a restaurant last night, and the fortune cookie, it said, the only good is knowledge, and the only evil, ignorance. And I hope to show today that actually problems are the source of real knowledge. As we seek to research them, define them, we find solutions. What it will take us to do is have the courage to follow that pathway and generate the solution for tomorrow. Very conscious, it's been said, Joan, I think, quoted the African proverb, it takes a village to raise a child. Well, it actually takes a country to sustain a language. It takes a country to sustain a culture. Sitting in my hotel last night, I'm looking at what is celebrated of Highland culture, Gaelic culture throughout Scotland. And it really will take, I think, as Joan also mentioned, us. It's interesting, we school in the Western Isles, North US, sitting at in Carinish, and the children were sharing with me the massive tradition of learning, the centre of learning, where people came to Carinish, a small village on the west of Scotland, from all over Europe for learning. But they composed a song because we're bringing the three schools into one. And I wish I had hoped to have it on the screen for you. I didn't manage to get it recorded in time. But what it's the measure of the song was encapsulated in these three words. As school is us, or 4 words. My arithmetic was always rubbish. As school is us. And so the theme of this is, for me anyway, education is about us. It's about what we give to our children in the future, that sense of identity that sits with their language culture, where, like me, I see myself as a Gael. It's regrettable, and there are lots of factors why I don't speak the language, but I am still a Gael. So, if I can quickly run through, and I'm hopeless with technology, which is odd since I'm going to speak a bit about it. What are we looking at in terms of this? Well, the first thing we're looking at are the challenges. It's not about eSchool, it's about the challenges. So let's think, what are some of the challenges? Staffing. You will have seen in the media last year, we couldn't staff our school with some teachers in some subjects. And we're certainly challenged by staffing them in some areas of Gaelic. Curriculum choices. We talk about equity of provision, whatever, but here's the truth of it. Angus is in a school, but he's in a school that offers 30% more choices than the other smaller secondary school in our community. Where's the equity or equality in that? We have 27%, 28% of our children will leave with any SEQF level 5 awards or above in the Western Isles. 28%. But actually you don't get the equal choice in every school. Angus spoke about languages. We have many languages, but we don't have equality of support for them. So big challenges for us. I now have to rush because if I develop them I know I'll get into trouble. There's the challenge of Gaelic media education. We've got a commitment. Our view is at least 70% of the children in the Western Isles should, in all circumstances of fairness, grow up speaking their language. But how do you make that a reality if parents doubt that you give that offer in secondary? Or worse still, if you do all of that and say there are limited opportunities later for you. I'll come back to that, but it's really important in how we recruit, etc., etc. Anyway, Rush, I'm not shouting at you, it's just nervousness. Funding. There's a lot of competition around for funding. There's a lot of insecurity. If there's one aspect of two aspects of funding, or something not good, 2 aspects of funding. I've always felt the money you've got's the most important, not the cut you have to achieve. And the second one is, I'm a bit iffy about project funding. They lack something about sustainability, but worse than that, they lack the critical ingredients of confidence. If there's no exit, or you know, and how many times have we applied for it in the knowledge that the exit strategy reads good and delivers nothing? because you're not going to have the confidence to deliver, or other things will happen. So these are just some of the challenges. So what are some of the facts that we know? In the Western Isles, we have 4 secondary schools, ranging from about 150 to 1,100. And the reality of these is they form parts of learning communities with their associated primaries. And together it gives us 26 centres of learning, and it gives us place-based cultural resources of a phenomenal extent. The reality is they're networked. They can talk to each other. The challenge for us is, at the moment, we don't actually work together as a system to deliver on the primary outcomes of education. So if that's the problem, we thought a solution might be the idea of digitally, technologically linking us together to make us stronger as a school system, delivering an equal opportunity and education, and therefore forming a learning community that existed throughout our community, including all our partners, which meant we needed to allow simultaneous connectivity between all our schools. But we're ambitious, because actually the Carinish model, why would we not actually think of this as everybody here today, being technologically engaged so that the skill you've got here can be available to me in Carinish, Tarbert, anywhere, or anything we're doing can work somewhere else. There are areas that we were challenged with locally, which are timetables and choices. So critically, we've got to make a choice of a common timetable in secondary. We've got to move equality of opportunity. So there's got to be some level of common choices. So youngsters, when they make choices on advanced higher or courses, the equality's there and they can make them. But there is other factors that we need to offer in this system if it were going to work in our rural area and give us a platform in Scotland. Initial teacher education. Just a few months ago, I was in the Northern Alliance. 257 teaching vacancies in the 7 authorities in the north of Scotland, 33 headships vacant. That isn't going to be answered next week or next year. But in partnership with UHI, GTCS, etc., we have got initial teacher education localised in the Western Isles in a platform delivered by the 4 schools working together, Gaelic and across all our subjects. There's Gaelic medium education. We can join up to share that offer of choice everywhere. Developing the young workforce, that has been a hugely important one. Many of you will know we had a school estate review. It's one of the most important things we did. Why? Because it gave us, first of all, a school estate fit for the 21st century, where I can tell you, with the exception of one school, every one of them is almost up now to the standard of our WISPs and resources, or will be shortly. 87% of these schools have technology equaling the best that we put in the most modern school we build today. But perhaps more importantly, an estate that was designed to try and arrest something that we noticed in the consultation. And that's this fact, that for 30 years, the school population of the Western Isles declined every year. And in the 4 years of the consultation process, we lost the equivalent of the entire enrolment of Stornoway Primary, our largest primary school, from our school population. Now, the truth of it is employment and work that generates communities that build populations that require schools. And so the most significant thing we do in that environment is profile our economic profile, match it to the education profile, and make an offer to children and young people that will exploit that situation. 2 things in that. I'm sorry, I need to watch my time, but they're important. One is to make sure that if you're in a community that has an aspiration of 70%, then we recruit people where Gaelic is essential and more jobs, proportionate to the scale of the population, community education, teaching, on you go through it. It also means that you think of exploiting your economic opportunities. So we've done a big drive on enterprise. We ran a program last year, or a couple of years ago, where our target was Of 120 vulnerable kids, how many of them could leave school to set up a business? We targeted 12. We achieved 12. 2 of them are full-time in business today. 8 of them are using their entrepreneurial skills to complement local community jobs and still be on the island. We are seeing a slowdown. So in other words, how can we encourage young people not to go away for education? More opportunities for employment locally. And the only way we could do that is pull together and make a curriculum fit for exploiting economic opportunities. On it goes. Teaching e-school, we'll jump through. You have to recognize, though, if Scotland is us, then young people with Gaelic will have additional support needs, and they shouldn't move out of Gaelic. We stay, and we have to bring support to them in however rural the school. We can do that today in so many more creative ways. And the other one is, how do you harness all of the resources that teachers make every day? So they spend more time teaching, engaging, and less time preparing. Resources, more time preparing, teaching, educating. So, what's the individual's journey? We try to kind of look at this and how could it work? The idea, first of all, is we couldn't do something in the Western Isles alone. Big ambition, big confidence. We want to be our school for Scotland. In other words, eSchool is your school. It is a school we invite every local authority to work with us to deliver a better offer to our children, wherever they are in Scotland or wherever they move to or from. Secondly, we definitely want to look at the Western Isles. We want to have a Gaelic arts strategy because it's about language culture with partners. That's an important thread through. We clearly want to make sure it's focused on education, community learning and development. This is language. If it takes a village to raise a child, it takes the cumulative growth of knowledge to inform a curriculum. We want sport and health and well-being. It's drawing so much money out of our systems that would be more positively used if we were achieving better. Vocational, which we've got rid of that term now, applied learning. These were the 4 pillars. The idea of the learning communities in all the 26 schools, Lewis Castle College, UHI campus, and our feeling is that the mechanism that allows for curriculum planning, resource allocation, workload sharing, making more effective, an economical approach, a more sustainable one, a more effective, greater equality of opportunity, and much more efficient, was to create an eSchool environment. And that's what we've tried to do. So the idea we were working from, if this works, what is it from our point of view? Okay, when we started to look, what this develops here is, it's meant to be a learner's journey. An eSchool isn't a virtual environment. That was the first thing that we came to a view. An eSchool is a real environment with real teachers teaching in real classrooms with real resources to real young people. And the issue for us was walking from that concept into the real world. I don't have the rest of the thing, so I'm sorry about that. But if I can outline, it meant for maths that we had to deliver online. It means for a whole range. I just looked at our schools just now. We have on a daily basis over 88 to 100 resources, online resources that teachers are using daily in our schools in the Western Isles. Our use of GLOW, for example, has increased to, I think it's somewhere in the, growing the percentage increase of it over the last 3 months by about 20%. Our teachers every day are using online resources and they are comfortable with it. It's no longer pilot, it's routine. So the offer we're looking at now is this, that we're working till October to establish a building, and that will be an old museum building, formerly an education building, Francis Street, Stornoway, as an eSchool hub. And through that hub, the head teachers will work till October to develop the common timetable and a common choices for young people to do. We've appointed head teachers, programme development with support of Scottish Government and Board Gaelic and others. But critically for ourselves, we've invested as the Western Isles 300,000 in initial teacher education, 150,000 developing the young workforce. But interesting, the way we went about developing initial teacher education was to advertise to all those we employ at a time of reducing employment in local authority to say anybody wants to change their career. We had 24 expressions of interest for people to move out of careers in engineering or whatever. We offered them 17,500 grant for year one and then on to the probationer route thereafter. The idea is that we can coordinate the learning across our schools. We can share our teachers more effectively. We can work together. We will think about principal teachers between schools, across schools. We will expand opportunity. We're fortunate that a number of local authorities have engaged with us, and we think we've got an opportunity to partnership with some others. Some of our primary schools are doing L1+2 through partnerships with France for French. We would like to link up with other Gaelic schools throughout the country, where some of the small groups we've got could work with much bigger groups for listening and talking. We see a significant opportunity in working with other authorities, and critically in this model it required us to bring together community learning, sport and health, because eSchool is not just about what we offer in class, it's making a school accessible 18 hours a day, 7 days a week if necessary, and it's allowing in the senior phase flexibility of timetables, parity of esteem with applied learning to other routes, and giving greater opportunity and empowerment for young people to stay at home. So, sorry I couldn't do that bit of it, but there you go. Even technology fails when you're leading on something called eSchool. But I think there is a real future. But for us here, I think it's essential if we want to grow Gaelic and languages in short term.